Hello, good afternoon. It's actually good evening in London here. It's Yogi, and I hope you're well. So, it's been a really busy day. Um, I taught 3 classes today. So, if you don't know, I'm a yoga teacher, so mostly. And yeah, I did 3 classes back to back. So it's been pretty intense today. But in the back of my mind, I've been really missing this piece. So I did a session yesterday. Let me just quickly show you. So this piece, if you've never seen this piece before, this is from Heaven and Earth. Let me show you the full markup here. So this is a full piece. So this piece is called The Little Cake Shop. It's totally whimsical and so pretty. And so the version I'm stitching is regular size, but max colors. So this is probably one of the pieces that it's involved most colors. I think it's about 260, 65, something like that. So even for max colors, it's on the higher side. And you can see why, because there's so much going on there. So yesterday, I worked on this area and I have completed it. Let me just zoom in a little bit there. It's really, really pretty color transitions there. I think it's part of the canopies. I'm not too sure yet, and I try not to reference to the markup too much, so it's always a surprise there. So I completed that session, that area, and today I'm going to move toward the top and kind of to tidy up some of my previous stitches. You can tell that previously I was going diagonal, kind of block by block in general, and mini cross country. So a lot of loose stitches kind of floating out of the main area. And so today I'm going to focus around this section. And let me show you, I'm using an app to track my stitches. And it's an app maybe some people are not very familiar with. It's called Cross Stitch Saga or Cross Stitching Saga, one or the other. And so let me show you the full view there. So my current progress, so you can see this is the portion I finished versus the entire piece. So a fair bit of progress, at least in my book, because I've got tons of pieces going on, but most of them probably around under 10%. Whereas this one, if I check the stats here, it's currently on, if you look at the top left area, there's a progress percentage there. And currently I'm on 12.8%, almost 13, which is pretty cool. And so today, using the app, I'm going to hopefully create a session here. So I think in-app is called Sprint. So I'm gonna just do that. And you will start counting, you start counting my progress from this point on. So I'm in no competition. I'm not aiming to stitch super fast. And but I like to keep track of what I'm doing. So you can see I'm starting from top left corner there, and then gradually working from left to right, top to bottom. You know, I think that's the direction most of the people do. So let me highlight the area I'm going to be working on today. So this app is also able to give you the ability to create a kind of user-defined area. Doesn't matter what size. And this is the area I'm going to be working on. So I'll be tidying up some of the ceiling, the connecting to the wall area. So it's quite interesting, a lot of color transitions there. I'm going to just lock it so I don't mess about with it, sort of accidentally move it. So I will be working on this area today. Oh dear, you can tell I'm not very familiar with the app, so I keep tapping the wrong button sometimes. So I intended to come out of this view. So this would be the view I've been working on. There's a toolbar on the left. I'll be leaving there permanently, actually. So I need to access it. So it's quite a large area. I haven't counted how many, but let me just have a quick look. So overall, the unstitched, the stitches left in this area, if you look at the middle left, the left panel around the middle there, so within the area, I've got about 3,600 and well, about 3,700 left actually. So obviously, it's very unlikely I'll complete the number of stitches in this session, but I'll see how far I can go. I've got my sprint activated, so I'll be interested to see how far I can go today. So the order I'll be stitching would be I'm going to go from the color that's got least number of stitches. You can tell this one's got 2 stitches here, and then it's gradually moving up. And this is such a fun way of stitching. So, you know, only, you know, since I got hold of this app, then I'm able to do that. So it's a little, you know, it's every color you move up, there's more stitches involved. And it kind of keeps your motivation going. So I'm going to start. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit clearer what I'm doing here. So this is the area I'll be focusing on today. And some of the stitches have already been filled in, and I'm going to just keep going. So let me have my little cupcake here, one of my favorite needle minders. And my little reindeer, a little bit premature, but I like it. So from here, I'm just looking at the markup, makes me so happy. This is kind of my dream cake shop, really. So let's see, 524, 524. Let me see if I've got one threaded already. No, so I'm going to bring up 524. It's been such a warm day today. 524. And because sometimes, so I'm in London, So this is close to 7 o'clock right now. It's 6:58. So it's pretty early for me in as far as stitching goes. I sometimes stitch quite late at night when I have time. And also it's peaceful to, stitch before bedtime. I quite like that. But the last couple of days I've been kind of start quite early, and I enjoy that too because I can still look out my window and see what's outside, which is so nice. And so I'm overlooking my patio, and it's been really warm. It might not be something that's that special for some of you if you live in sort of warm countries, but in the UK, summer, it's not unusual that it's still pretty cold comparing to most countries. I'm trying to find the color I'm stitching here. So I'm in a warm-up stage, it's a bit like going to an exercise class. You're warming up. So I'm warming up right now. So I'm doing here. Let me just move the lighting slide over there so you can see, and I can see as well. So quite a lot of stitches involved. And I'm getting more and more daring with this because in the beginning I was doing kind of 4 blocks or 6 blocks. And the last session I did an area of 15 blocks. And with this one, I haven't counted. It's quite big, but some of the diagonal, the upper left corner, I've already done before. So it's not something that I've stitched recently. So this piece, I've already had it, started working on it maybe over 2 years ago. Time flies, really. I remember it was during COVID, and I discover this pattern, and it's so beautiful, and I had to have it. And I worked on it quite a lot, as you can see the percentage. I put some work into it, and it's quite I don't want to say complex, but it's got so much colors involved. It's a challenging piece, or it can be, but I really, really enjoyed it. But then I started to add more projects. Oops, let me just find my little scissors. Here we are, really organized. And as the number of the projects increasing, I kind of, it kind of distracted me from this project, and so I kind of left it for a little bit. So yesterday or the day before, literally, I think it was the first time I came back to this piece since last year, to be honest, and I love it. I really love it. So there are only 2 stitches for this one, 5 to 4. I'm gonna put my needle back. 5 to 4, and then I'm going to mark these stitches to move on to the next one, so it jumps to the next color for me. And 4, 5, 2, 4, 5, 2. I need a new thread. 4, 5, 2. 4, 5, 2, lovely silver. And because I left it for so long, it feels really fresh, you know. It made me remember why I fell in love with this piece when I first saw it over 2 years ago. So with this one, I am going over to the bottom right there, mostly on the bottom right. So I'm slowly forming a kind of the box shape of the area. And even though it's nearly 7 o'clock, I'm actually drinking coffee. Yay! I really needed it. You know, it's a little bit late for caffeinated drinks, but can really do with a nice cup of coffee. And I couldn't believe how fast it was, because the 15 block area, prior to using this method, it would have taken me, even if I put in a few stitches every day, it probably would have taken me at least 4 or 5 days, or even up to a week. Really depends. But I managed to finish it in probably less than 2 days, which is phenomenal. I'm trying to get my head around why this is so much faster. Really, the number of stitches involved don't change. It could be the fact that there's less color changes, because as you work up the colors, the number of stitches also increase, and eventually, you know, you stitch the same color for a fair number of stitches at a time, and there's just less there's color changes, I guess. 1, 2, 3 here. But it doesn't fully explain why it's maybe 3 times faster. I don't know. It feels so much faster. And that's kind of new to me, because I'm a slow stitcher in general, and I'm not sort of racing anywhere at all. I'm just putting a stitches 1 stitch at a time. And this way of stitching is also quite fun, because it's a bit like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. You kind of put in is seemingly random stitches everywhere and gradually build up a lovely image, you know, before your eyes. And it's just so nice. I'm going to mark these ones so I can keep track of it. Oh, okay. So it's done. Hang on. Let me just go back. I just want to make sure I pop this back. Okay, that was the last stitch. So you kind of jump to the next color automatically, which is a feature I didn't even know that I needed. But I love it. So 452, pop it back. Let me see. Lovely. A beautiful blue. Next one. So I think this piece requires a little bit of patience. If you look at a mock-up, the upper left toward the right, if you stitch diagonally like I did, you spend a lot of time just stitching the wall and the ceiling, really, even though the color transition is really pretty. You are there for a long time, and I was. But you know, I couldn't wait to get to the cakes, the sweets. 312, 312. It's always the impatience. This is too short. I'm gonna get a new strand. 312. But it's kind of driving you forward as well. So it could work either way. Depends on what kind of person you are. And some pieces I just dive straight in to the area I want to stitch, like right in the center. But this piece I managed to start from the upper left. And as I said, even for max colors, for Heaven and Earth, this is quite a high number of colors involved. A lot of colors. So depends on the stitching methods of your choice. It could feel like you're, you know, it's confetti everywhere. Because some pieces, most pieces, you might have confetti areas, but then you get out of it and you have a little bit of a break. Whereas Max Color, in particular this piece, it feels like there's a lot of color changes everywhere. So you have to, if you're getting this pattern, if you get Max Color, you have to go in with eyes wide open and be fully prepared for the challenge. These colors are so pretty. So pretty. One, two, three, four. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. So even just with the ceiling, there's so many colors involved, the transition. And with some pieces, I think for Heaven and Earth, I've got another piece that's regular color and regular size. It's still, it's a lot easier to stitch because I think it's only 95 colors or something like that. But it still comes out really beautiful. So I think even if you stitch the regular version, you're not deprived from beautiful results. You know, I think the max color, well, at least in my mind, is more of a challenge more than anything. And I'm hoping the outcome will be even better as well. But I think, you know, like I said, you will still get a beautiful piece with regular colors, I'm sure. Two down here. And one down, one below. I can hear birds. It's a strange time for birds to sing. This is 7 p.m. I thought they only made noises in the morning. They're singing. I don't know whether you can hear it. Such a pretty blue, royal blue. And by the way, the floss I'm using is DMC. So it's kind of the floss of choice for most Heaven and Earth stitches. And I have pieces using CXC as well. I enjoy CXC as well. So let me mark these. One, two, three here. There you go. And let me see, quite a few stitches down here. And these are probably some of my favorite colors. You know, the royal blue, the navy blue, I love. And also that greenish blue, sort of teal colors. It's just so pretty. And particularly when you're stitching close up like this, you really get to enjoy the colors. Such a feast for the eyes. And you know, the area I worked on yesterday involves some brown, pink, and orange. And you just switch to another area, you're stitching a set of completely different set of colors. And that's the joy of having a design that's involved so much. You know, it's got everything going on, different colors, And so you don't get fatigued, you don't get bored of working on the same palette. And and talking about that, I know there are design out there, patterns out there. There's grayscale, like almost black and white in different shades. And I take my hats off anybody that choose to work on those pieces, because there's just no way, no way, no way I'll be able to cope with that. No way I'll be able to cope with that. So I wouldn't go near the sort of patterns like those, or anything that's got sort of acres of ocean or tons of trees or grass. No chance. No chance. So you might notice there's some sort of pattern emerging with sort of my choices of design, so to speak, the type of charts that I go for. I like spaces, like a room full of things, or shops, shop fronts like this. It's just full of dreams. I'm less drawn to sort of fantasy themes. I know it's very popular, sort of dragons and angels, that type of stuff. I think Heaven and Earth is quite known for that type of stuff. But not really. I'm not drawn to those. As a child, my dreams were always having my dream sweet shops or cookie shops, that kind of stuff. And, the shops would be full of really cute things, a lot of pastel colors, that kind of stuff. So I'm really chasing my childhood dreams when it comes to stitching, picking my patterns, really. And it's so lovely to be able to immerse myself in in patterns like this. 1, 2, 3. 1. 1, 2, 3 here, and 2 from the left. I see. So the fabric, you might have noticed, it's pre-gridded, so I don't have to do anything, and it's always accurate. So it's kind of quite nice. I do have projects. I just use plain even weave, but they're both enjoyable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 here. I think the plain fabrics, the plain even weaves, it feels a little bit softer to stitch, whereas the gridded version tend to be, it has a little bit more body to it. So I think it's just more starch or something like that. So you can definitely appreciate the difference. Not better or worse, they're just different. So, you know, it might come into how you choose your fabric as well. And luckily, I enjoy both. Let me see. Just check how many stitches have I got left. So I've got 14 left for this color-ish. It's nice to know how many stitches left for a particular color, so you know whether you need a new thread or not. There you go. Two from the left. And today's Friday the 13th, in case you haven't noticed. I don't know. I think if you don't pay attention, it just doesn't make any difference. But then, if you have certain belief about a date, then, you know, you probably attribute certain things. If things don't go well, you probably think because it's an unlucky day. But for me, it's been a lovely day, so no complaints so far. I'd love to know what you're working on. Are you stitching? And what is the project of your choice right now? It makes me happy if someone's stitching the same piece. It's like stitching with me in the pure sense. We're literally stitching the same piece. So I'm going to tuck this one in. It's getting pretty short here. I'm just move it slightly over here. And by switching your stitching method, or at least for me, it feels like a completely different piece. I've got one stitch left, but I need a new thread. There you go. 312. It's always the case. One of these pretty blue here. Or if I pushed, maybe I was able to do the last stitch. But so there's one more here. Let me just have a look. It's here. 1, 2, 3. I think you know that you're in love with the piece when you're kind of thinking about it when you're not stitching. You know, you're thinking about where you're going to, which area you're going to work on it next, and how you're going to work on it. Start occupied. your mind, then you know you're in love. It's 312. So I'm secretly trying to see if I'm able to stream a little bit every day, at least for, I don't know for how long, as a challenge for myself. I'm thinking, dare I say, 30 days? Too scared to say that, because if I break the streak, I'm gonna feel like, I failed. No, I haven't really. That'd be silly. But I've been thinking about it for a while, but I just want to kind of make sure it's actually realistic to do. But I really love streaming. And I get to chat to some of you sometimes. And even if not, I know I'm sharing something. Maybe it's fun for some people to watch, or maybe give you some motivation to work on your piece as well. Because that's what I get when I watch other people stitching. I really enjoy it. 647, 647. And I'm such a nerd when it comes to stitching, I don't get to talk about it with anyone else because I don't know anyone around me that actually do this kind of stitching. It's quite an odd thing. Let me see, it's up here. So I'm just kind of going around these areas. It's quite short. Probably gonna have to switch to a new strand very soon. I'm filling in these little pieces of jigsaw puzzle. Two more here. It's just so well charted because the colors are so nuanced. And sometimes I go, I read the charts and look at the color and kind of wonder, is it gonna work? Because the color seems a bit, you're not quite sure what it's gonna look like when it's stitched. But once the stitches are done, it just made perfect sense. Everything just blend in really well. Six, 4, 7. I need a new thread. 6, 4, 7. 6, 4, 7. And moving over here. If you look at the transition from dark navel to green, it just seemed impossible, but it's just because these are very different colors, but when they kind of just blend together, which is so lovely. So I'm going in from here. Let me have a check. So it's all about your kind of deciding where you want your stitches to float toward, because it may be in a very different locations within the area. And kind of just flow with the colors. Oh dear. It's kind of snagged a little bit. Let me have a look. DMC seems to kind of snag a little bit more than CXC, which is quite interesting because it looks so much silkier and more glossy and everything, but texture is a little bit prone to snagging. Whoops, just knocked my camera there. Just blends in. Whoops, just stop doing that. There we go. And the next one, I'm actually going to move it all right there. It's quite far away, but because I'm moving the thread over the unstitched area, so I don't mind the distance within reason. I mean, it's quite a large areas there. If I was stitching with other methods, I probably wouldn't go over 10 stitches, to be honest, just to keep everything tidy there. Mm. Two. And one more underneath. running slightly low on the spare needles. I think it's better today. Yesterday I literally only had 5 spare ones left because everything's been parked. Maybe it's time to get a few more. There's one more. 1, 2, 3. One, two. Okay. Because this is such a large area, you do need a little bit more focus so you don't stitch in the wrong area. It can easily happen. Easily happen. Oh, I need some coffee. Take a sip. I actually really like cold coffee as well. It's still warm, but there's something about cold coffee. It tastes so good. Lovely. Okay, so I'm here. I'm going to mark it. Mark these ones. I'm going to move up there. And when I started sort of full coverage, prior to that, I was mostly stitching with a single hand, meaning that, you know, you put a needle in and with the same hand. I'm right-handed, so I'll use the same hand, go under the fabric, pull it out, and then come back. So when I started to stitch like this, because if you stitch like samplers and stuff, it's not unusual that you turn the project over to tuck in to end thread. You know, so the back is kind of neat and tidy, but with this kind of projects, you just don't want to turn over the project constantly. I mean, just not practical. So I had to practice stitching with both hands. So now I kind of take it for granted, but it took me a little while to be able to do it kind of intuitively, because my instinct was to use the same hand to do both. So I think for some stitches, it could be one of the things that you want to pick up. You know, if you start stitching full coverage for the first time, then it's a lot more efficient if you stitch with both hands. You know, it doesn't matter if you care about the speed or not. It's just a more pleasurable way of doing it. One here, one below. There's so many different techniques I kind of picked up and had to practice along the way. I mean, I'm not as OCD now, but when I was working on a 14 count, I still have projects that's 14 count, but in the beginning, when I started with full coverage, 14 counts, I was actually doing I can't remember what it's called, basically smoothing it out, because you use two strands and sometimes they get twisted over each other. So I learned from some stitchers to use a kind of larger needle, smooth out the strands. And there's techniques you can do with fingers as well, or just put the needles between the two threads and to keep two threads kind of nice and flat when you stitch over each other, basically on two full cross. And I did that for a while, but then I go, oh, life is too short to do that, because no one can really see. I mean, it feels good that you know everything is neat and tidy, but to be honest, it's kind of disrupting the flow a little bit, because you have to, every single stitch, you have to pull a needle through. And sometimes I just use my fingers. It's not as effective, you know, I just use my finger to smooth out the threads like this, you know, just run it over a couple of times. That works fairly well. I think really depends on what you're looking for. So I think it's a balance between the results you want versus practicality. You don't want to try to do so much that eventually you just get fed up because there's so much work. And just like everything else, really. Everything else in life. Another one over here. Oops. Let me see. These colors are so subtle. And sometimes when you're stitching sort of really pale colors, you know, slightly off-white colors, It's really hard to the eye sometimes. These 3 stitches. How many have I got? I've got 4 more. Okay. Ah, the last 4. Amazing. So I think I've got just about enough thread left. 2 more stitches. You know, when you're able to squeeze in just enough stitches for the thread, you always feel like you got away with it. It's like a game you play. 1, 2. It's over here. Beautiful. This tiny bit left. I managed to do the last stitches. I try not to waste anything, because these are beautiful, beautiful threads. Nothing goes wasted. Next one. Oh, one of my favorite colors. This is this greenish blue. 598. 598. Oh, so beautiful. Let's have a look. Look, so pretty. Look at this color. Huh. I used a t-shirt of this color. Where's it gone? Can't remember. Right. So I'm going from here. It's that one. Such a beautiful color. One stitch here. And so because it's Friday the 13th, it kind of reminded me of a strange experience I had quite a few years ago. So I live in London, and I don't know if you've been to London, you probably know of the area called Soho. So it's kind of the West End of London. So, for instance, in New York, you've got Broadway, and West End for us is kind of the Broadway of London, really, if that makes sense. There are a lot of theatres, that kind of stuff. And so it's very popular, not just for theatre goers, for, a lot of tourists and stuff like that. So this area around East End called Soho, it's got a lot of bars and restaurants. And a lot of restaurants has been around for a long time. A lot of cafes, they've been around for a long, long time. And there used to be this Italian restaurant. It's more like an Italian diner. It's very casual. And it's called Polo. And it's no longer there. It's kind of closed quite a few years back. And it's Polo, because the other day I was trying to Google to see if I can find some photos. I couldn't even find any meaningful photos because it's been closed for so long. But it's a restaurant that's known by a lot of Italians. A restaurant is good is if, for instance, if it's a Chinese restaurant, if you see a lot of, Chinese people eating, then it's probably a good restaurant. And the same thing with Italian. There were always a lot of people, they speak Italian, so I presume they're Italian. So it's a really good restaurant. And I know for a fact through my Italian friends that the cooking of the restaurant was like Italian mama. I think that's probably one of the highest compliments you can give to an Italian restaurant. It's like your mom's cooking. So it was really popular, and also it's quite cheap. So I was a student at that time, and cheap is good, and it's good food as well. So we often went there, and you get a big plate, large plate of pasta, and they give you a lot of bread as well if you're carb loading. So it was popular, and I had been there before several times, so I wasn't a stranger with that restaurant. And the reason I want to talk about this restaurant is not to do food review. The restaurant is already gone, but I had a strange experience there. And even so many years later, I still think about it from time to time. And so what happened was, it was a really warm summer day. Well, it's not technically summer yet, but in London, this is a really warm day for June. And we're kind of, the beginning of the summer. But I think when I went to that restaurant that day, it was probably August, because I remember it was really hot. And it was still quite early. I'm trying to think, maybe not even 6. So it was quite an early time for a big meal like that, really, but we were hungry. And there was a group of, I'm trying to think, maybe 5 of us. And it was quite a busy restaurant, so we went in because we were quite early. We weren't, it wasn't sort of peak dinner time, so we managed to get a table without difficulty. And it was broad daylight. You know, as I said, it was before 6, I'm pretty sure. And we sat down. It was all of us, all girls. We sat down. And so the restaurant's got the entrance, obviously it's on the ground floor, on the ground level. It didn't have upstairs. It's got a basement though. It's not a huge restaurant. It's kind of a diner type of restaurant, but it's got a basement. And it's always busy. But probably because it wasn't sort of mealtime just yet. The basement was not very busy. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm trying to make sure that I stitch it in the right place. 3, 4, 5. Okay, let me just make sure I do that first before I stray off somewhere it's totally different. I might get too excited telling the story and just stitch in a totally wrong area. So the basement wasn't very busy at that day. Almost empty probably. So what happened was we sat down and we ordered, waiting for the food, and I went downstairs to the ladies' room. It was downstairs. So I went down there. And the ladies' room, if I remember, was, I walked down the stairs and the ladies' room was on the left. So I come down the stairs, walk a few steps ahead. On the left, there was an entrance. There was an entrance there. And the loo, to be honest, it wasn't, it was really just one cubicle. So it wasn't sort of full on toilet with different, you know, doors and everything. It's really, you turn left, there's a narrow, really narrow entrance there because the building is really old, like most buildings in London. And there, as you walk in, there's a tiny little sink there to wash your hands. And then in front of you, there was a door. And inside that's an actual toilet. So just one room, one cubicle. So very simple structure. And because it was basement, there was no window. So basically, you turn left, you see the sink, there's another door, and if you walk inside, you're in actual toilet there. See, I've already stitched in the wrong area because I'm just talking. It's all right. I will just undo this. And I knew this was going to happen because I'm trying to recall what happened there. Let me just snip that off. I'll just stitch over it later on. And I had been there before, and for some reason I walked downstairs, turned left, and I saw a lady there. She was quite young. Maybe no more than, I don't know, 22, something like that. 598. Let me just pull another thread before I move on with the story. I haven't told this story for quite a while. So I saw this lady. She had short blonde hair and age around maybe 20, 22 max. And she was in front of me, so she looked like she was already waiting to get into the loo. So someone else was in there. And so I basically stood next to her. We're kind of forming a queue, really, a small line there. If you don't know what queue is, it's just a line. So I waited there and I smiled at her because we're kind of this unspoken thing, you know, when you bump into someone queuing for the loo as well, you just go, okay, someone's in there, let's wait, type of thing. So I kind of gave her a smile and she smiled back. And we waited for a little bit. So there are a couple of people behind me. So we actually started to form just a longer queue, really. So there were about 3-4 people in total. So a couple of people behind me. And then I saw this lady going in the loo. And we waited. You know, she went into the loo. Of course, you just wait outside until the person comes out. And we waited. And waited. I don't know for how long exactly, probably 3-4 minutes, but it's quite a long time, you know, considering you really just go in and do whatever you have to do, come out. And I remember turning toward the people behind me. There were a couple of people there. And I smiled at them. Again, we're kind of, you know, just have this face. Well, you know, it's taking a long time. And for some reason, the lady behind me decided to go and move in front of me and open the door of the loo where the blonde lady went in. You know, there's only one cubicle, so right in front of us. And she opened the door. It wasn't locked. And no one was inside. And I remember this lady behind me who opened the door kind of looked at me, slightly annoyed, because she probably thought, well, I must have been really confused. You know, the loo was available, but I was standing there waiting and they had to wait with me. So she looked a little bit annoyed and she kind of signaled me to go in because no one was inside. And I was mighty confused. I was very confused. I didn't say anything, but as I went in, I don't know. I don't know if I was scared. I don't think I was scared. I was just very confused. And I looked around the loo itself. It's really very tiny. It's cubicle rather than a room. It's not like a bathroom. It was just a toilet bowl. And that's it. Because the sink was on the outside. So, and there's nowhere to go. There's no windows or ventilation that I could see, any opening that someone could crawl out or anything climb out. Nothing. Literally, this person, this blonde lady, I saw her walked in that loo and never came out. It was broad daylight. Just broad daylight. So I went in, I kind of checked the room, the space. There was just nothing. There's no way anybody can leave that space without me seeing it. So I went upstairs and I told a story to my friends. They weren't very sympathetic. They just go, well, maybe you're confused. Maybe there was no one in front of you. But I knew there was, because up to even now, I can recall what she looks like. I remember her face. I remember her hairstyle. Oh, GMB, thank you so much. Thank you very much. GMB says, love your videos. How kind of you. Thank you so much. So I'm kind of in the midst of a ghost story. I hope it's not too scary. I think it's quite appropriate for for 13th, the Friday. I thought I'd tell a story. Because it's been sort of in my mind for a long time, but the story doesn't end there. So remember I said that the toilet, when you walk down the stairs, the loo, the entrance of the loo was on the left. So after that day, I remember, my mom came to visit me, so I told her the story, and my mom was just as curious as I was. It runs in the family. And my mom goes, well, why don't we go there again? She was really curious. And I can't remember whether she's been to the restaurant or not. But so we went together. And it was probably, I'm trying to recall, a few weeks. Not very long after that. It was still summer, I think. So we went together. And the food was good, so so we went together. And the thing is, I've been to that restaurant a few times before, not super frequently, but I wasn't a stranger to that restaurant. So we went in, and my mom was like nudging me and go, well, shall we go downstairs and have a look? And so we went. I remember it was daytime again, sort of early supper time. And I think, if I remember correctly, I went down to the loo first. I was a little bit apprehensive about it. I was like, what if I saw that lady, if I see that lady again? But the thing is, when I went downstairs, so this is it. I walked downstairs and I looked to the left where the toilet's supposed to be. I couldn't find it. I couldn't see the entrance. And I was so confused in my head. I thought, well, have I been to the loo before? Because the loo is supposed to be on the left. And I never consciously thought about where the loo was. It was just where it was. Where the loo is supposed to be on the left, there was a really, really large mirror. Like really old mirror that you will get in sort of antique shops. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it right now. It was a large mirror, and it didn't look like it was just placed there recently. It looked like it's been there forever. And I just never pay attention to that prior to the last visit when I saw the lady. So in my mind, I was thinking, well, then where's the loo? Where is the toilet? So the toilet turned out to be on the right side. So when you walk down, on the left, there's a wall, and then the entrance to the loo was on the left. Very narrow, quite narrow passage, not very long. And then you get the sink, and then you get the door to the cubicle itself. But when I went back with my mom, the loo was on the right. So the wall is running kind of parallel to where the stairs were. I just didn't know what was going on. And the toilet, the setup, the design of the toilet in terms of layout was identical to the toilet before. You know, a tiny little sink, and then there's a door that takes you to the loo itself. But it was just not in the same location. It was just not in the same location. So I went upstairs. I probably run to my mom, and my mom didn't know how to make of it, because she wasn't there when I saw the lady, so she couldn't verify where the loo was. But I till this day, I still can't figure out what happened that day. It's like Twilight Zone. Maybe I walked into some sort of Twilight Zone. I don't know. But I still remember really vividly till this day. I don't know whether I was hallucinating or something else. And days like this, like today, warm summer day, really reminds me of that story, of that encounter. Well, I hope that lady found her way home, wherever that was. Maybe she had the same experience. You know, if you believe there are sort of parallel universes, maybe she was in another universe, and we just clash with each other, and maybe she's telling the story right now about seeing me in the loo and then disappeared. I don't know. It's a strange world. And the thing is, there's just no way to find out, to verify what actually happened. And then now the restaurant is gone, so, you know, can't go back and have another look. It will always be a mystery. Always be a mystery. Let me mark this before I lose track. On the left here. One, two, three. And these ones as well. Three, 6, 60. And these ones as well. Now, I don't know whether you've heard about, there are a lot of videos about glitches in a universe. You know, there's certain things that just doesn't make sense. It's a little bit like that. It's getting short. I'm going to end the thread here. I need to double check these colors. It just doesn't seem to match the chart. Let me just check before I proceed. Because I just imported the chart to this app. Just want to make sure the thread colors are correct. It looks a little bit different. Just want to check this color. 318. 318. Ah, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. You know, this bit of brown is supposed to be light gray, because I was thinking that the colors doesn't really blend that well. So these dark brown, for some reason, I stitched with the wrong color. Maybe I read the number wrong. 31A. 31A is supposed to be this kind of purpley blue color. So let me see if I can stitch over it. But it's quite dark, so no wonder. It doesn't match the presentation on the chart as well. It looks gray, which is closer to the actual color. Right, let me see what I can do. Or I can always come back to fix it later, because these ones are, if they're kind of similar, if the color is kind of similar, I'll probably just let it be, but it's quite different. So trying to see, quite a few stitches here. Never mind, I'll come back and fix it, or stitch over it. Let me see. Because what I don't want, if I try to cover it and it doesn't work, because it's quite dark, we'll find out. Let me see if I can stitch over it. So it might be okay actually. It doesn't. Let's see how it goes. It's a little bit better. It's not. It might still show through a little bit. But I might be able to cheat my way through. It's very messy. Yeah. Let me see. Maybe I'll leave it for now. I'll undo it a little bit later on. It's not the end of the world. 318. Oh, there is one. Okay. Never mind. Because it's quite a large area. It's the chance of stitching the wrong area is a lot greater for me anyway. Normally I stitch within 1 block or 2 blocks, something like that. Right, 3A60. 3A60. Three, 8, 60. Here we go. 3A60. I've only got a little bit left. Let me just zoom out a little bit so you get to see it in its entirety. I've got a tiny bit left. I need to top it up. Right in the middle there. Have a sip of coffee. Got 2 over here. See, it's happening again with the MC. I kind of just snap. It's a fresh thread as well. It's getting a little bit darker outside. Because in the summer, in London, in UK, the daytime gets longer and longer as it gets warmer toward the summer. And normally, in about maybe August, you get the longest daylight. It's not unusual to still have the daylight, maybe up to 9 o'clock. So it's quite nice. If you go to the park or have a day outdoor, you have the daylight till pretty late. But you get very, very short daylight in the winter. It's quite extreme. In the winter, you could get pitch black by 3:30. It depends on the days. If it's cloudy, then yeah, literally, you see very little daylight during the day. And particularly if you work in sort of offices, when you go out in the morning, it's still dark because the morning, the daylight comes in quite late. You know, we're talking maybe not till 9, 10 o'clock. So if you go out sort of 7, it's still dark. And then you stay indoor in the office. And then, you know, when you go home, it's pitch black again. And if you do that day in and day out, it can be quite depressing. I mean, we're not as bad as some Nordic countries. You know, they literally have days of or weeks of nighttime, or the opposite. But there's a little bit of that going on. So some people can suffer from winter blue, and some people use sort of lamp. I'm not sure, is it not UV light, some sort of lighting to simulate daylight, because some people can get quite depressed in the winter. And that's why, you know, if you're in the if you're in the UK for more than a few months, you really appreciate daylight and sunlight. So over here, as soon as the sun comes out, people rush to the park, anywhere they can kind of just enjoy the sunlight. And, you know, maybe not always so careful about sunblocks and stuff like that. I mean, I have to confess that I rarely wear sunblocks. It's just too much work, you know. I use normal moisturizers and that's it. I don't use special sort of anything to block UV light. I mean, to be honest, we don't really get that much anyway. And we all need vitamin D. So you just get what you can. And maybe take supplements as well. I think vitamin D is probably universally deficient for most people. Even people live in quite hot countries. That's where there's a lot of sunlight, because people tend to stay indoor when it's very hot. So let's say Europe, for instance, Italy, Spain, it's very, very hot in the summer. And people stay indoor, probably, because it's so uncomfortable, you know, humid as well. And I have experienced Italian summer and Spanish summer as well, and France as well. France can be very hot in the summer. Maybe not so much in the south. South of France is maybe a bit cooler. But, you know, if you go to Paris, really hot. and humid as well, because the thing about UK summer, even in a very hot day, because it's quite dry, it's actually quite nice. Yes, there may be some days, rare days, in the summer that you get humid, sort of higher humidity as well. But most of the times, it's just dry heat. It's actually quite nice. So, and also hot days are so rare. It's kind of, quite precious in a sense. And today is pretty warm. I think we're talking over 22 degree. I haven't checked the actual temperature. But I think today we're talking, even now as we speak, it's about 24 degree Celsius. I mean, depends on where you are right now. You probably go, well, that's pretty chill. 24. I think it's quite mild and hot for most countries, I think. But for us, it's hot. It's very, very nice. So, let me see. There's one stitch here I missed. But winter can be challenging. I think some people might I want to move to warmer countries because of the winter. Because it's not just the fact that it's short daylight. It rains a lot as well. I mean, it rains in the summer, depends, but it definitely rains in the winter. So it can be challenging for some people. I get it. Um, Over here. Just double check I'm in the right spot. But I can't really imagine if you're in the countries, like Norway, Iceland perhaps, where you have either daylight for weeks or months on end, or the other way around. You have it's permanent darkness. That's got to be hard. That's got to be challenging. So it's got 3 stitches here. I'm gonna do it from here. Might have enough for the remaining stitches. See how it goes. Or maybe not. It's quite short. No. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I need to end the thread very soon. Right. I'm gonna end it now. $3,860. I think I need to top it up very soon. Got a tiny bit left. $3,860. Got 3 strands left. Oops. So I've done these ones. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got a few more here. 13. And 2 down here. Let me have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a couple more somewhere else. Oops. And there's one more over there. This is a challenge to your pattern recognition ability, because the stitches are kind of everywhere. And this is a self-imposed challenge actually, so I have no complaint. I did this to myself. I could have just had 4 blocks, but instead I have, God knows how many blocks here. But I managed 15 blocks okay. So I thought I'll just increase the area a little bit more. So see what happens. Right, I think I've got 4 more stitches somewhere. Or 2 more, rather. Where are you? At the bottom, just 1 stitch. Okay. This is very typical for Max colors. They're just kind of in a random, scatter in a random location, and makes you wonder, is it really necessary? But I guess the answer is yes. So there's 1 at the top left here. Let me just move it over there. Top left. And then there's another one down here. 1, 2. Like way down here. That will be the last one for this color. Whoops. Pardon me. Beautiful. 3860. Let me take another sip of my coffee. So good. Right. Next one. Let's have a look. Three, 7, 2, 7. 3, 7, 2, 7. 3, 7, 2, 7. It's a lovely pink. So it's mostly at the bottom right corner there. There's something so satisfying about kind of building a straight line. I don't know about you. It's just something so neat about it. And you know, some people, when they stitch block by block, sometimes they go, wow, you might create sort of tension line there. And to be honest, I never noticed that, even if I stitch block by block. I just never noticed that. But if you stitch this way, because, you know, you kind of define random, not random, but areas of different sizes all the time, that's very unlikely you will get any lines. But I have seen finished pieces that you can actually see the line. It's quite weird because you have to pull really hard when you change directions to create that kind of clear lines. I just never noticed that with the way I stitch. So I've actually seen people kind of create zigzag edges. So they still stitch block by block, but they do zigzag on the edges. And it's just no way I'm gonna I'm gonna do that. Yeah, I just probably a bit too much. I prefer just follow the normal border, the straight borders. So I'll need to mark these ones as I go because they're quite a lot of stitches. So now I'm moving up the colors. Now each color has at least 60 stitches, which is quite nice because then you just keep stitching. Maybe this is why it's fast. Because prior to this, I was, I don't really part that much with 25 count. I did that for a little while, but I felt that for some reason with this fabric size, count size, it flows a bit better for me. Kind of doing some form of mini cross country. So I'll just, you know, stitch away from kind of the main area pretty much. So for instance, you know, if I go like this, I just stitch away from the main area until either I run out of a strand or when the next stitch is too far away. So I don't normally sort of jump beyond maybe a block or two. So that's kind of my comfort zone. And but the thing is, with that way of stitching, I kind of enjoyed it, but it it's lacking. Depends on what type of stitcher you are. For me, it was probably lacking a little bit of reward. You know, you need kind of a milestone. For me, when I finish this area, even though it's user defined, there's a sense of accomplishment. You know, I finished this area and I can move on to the next one. And it's quite nice to have that. Whereas if you go sort of loose mini cross country, you don't really feel like you have finished or gone anywhere or hit any milestones until you hit maybe a page mark. You know, if you care about pages, you could define that as a milestone, Or you have to wait till the end of the project, really, because you are just floating away from kind of slowly building up the stitches with no particular sort of how can I put it? There isn't any stops, you know, because some people stitch one page at a time. So when you finish a page, you feel like, okay, one page done, move on to the next one. But if you don't have that kind of hard stop from time to time, you kind of just you can lose momentum sometimes or lose motivation, because where is the end until completion? So I like to create sort of mini reward or milestones for myself, so I keep going. This one over here. Oops. I can already see some sort of pattern forming. Oh, it's completely dark outside now. And it's nearly 9 o'clock. One, two, three. Down here. This pink is so pretty. Oh wow, I've got 51 stitches with this color, so they're everywhere on here, I think. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to end this thread. It's getting a bit short. Right. These ones done. So I think what I'm gonna do, 3727. Let me see. 3727. So the pink here, I'm going to take a few strands out because I've got about 46 stitches left in this area of this color. So 27, I'm going to take maybe 3 strands out. And I'm going to take 1 more. It's just easier because I know there are a few stitches left. Here we go. Back in business. So it's mostly concentrated around this area, the bottom here. Move it up a little bit. There's one more pattern that I'm looking forward to do at some point. It's one of the, I'm trying to recall, I'm trying to think. Is it, I don't think it's super size. I'm not particularly drawn to super sizes, but it's max color and it's another heaven and earth design, naturally. Let me see if I can find it. It's on my pattern keeper. I know I've got so many projects, but sometimes you just you think about a certain pattern. It's kind of calling you. So this one I've already got. Let me just bring it up. So it's my pattern keeper here. Let me zoom out a little bit. Maybe if I remove this, maybe slide it over here. So this is the one. It's called Vintage Toys 2, and it's max. Let me show you the mock-up. Look at that. I know. I just love pattern that's got a lot going on. And I've got this one on a sales, one of the sales days from Pattern Heaven and Earth. I probably had it for nearly 2 years now, but I just haven't really got the courage to start because it's another massive project, and I'll have to get the fabric for it. Maybe that's a good thing that I don't have the fabric for it, because if I have the fabric, I will probably just start stitching. But because I'm yet to get the fabric, so this is still sitting on my pattern keeper that I haven't really done anything to it. But every time I just bring up the mock-ups and I go, oh, I would just love to stitch this robot here. It's just all the color changes, you know, the palettes. I'm just excited by stuff like this. Like really a lot going on within the pattern. So yeah, so it's one of the things that one of the patterns still waiting for me, and I know that I'm ready to do it when I'm ready, really. Um, how many projects do I need? Not enough. Not enough. I'm very good at starting projects. I haven't really finished a single piece yet, other than really small samplers, you know. But the idea of starting a project just excites me so much. Move up a little bit more. So I've got 2 over here. So tomorrow I've got some early classes as well. Well, early for me, around 10ish. But in order to make it to a 10 o'clock class, I normally get up at about 7, because I like to, you know, take it slow in the morning, have a sip of coffee. I don't like to rush. And then travel to the studio. 1, 2, 3. These ones. So it's probably a good idea that I started stitching early. Because if I start any time after 10, the chances are I'll probably end up going to bed quite late. It's just the way it is. So maybe I need to build up a habit of stitching a little bit earlier. Well, I really enjoy late night stitching as well. There's something so feels just a little bit naughty as well, because you feel like, oh, I'm just sneaking, you know, kind of sneakily stitching when I really should be going to bed. I feel like a child try to get away from the curfew of bedtime. I remember I was made to sleep maybe by 9:30 when I was a kid. Not super young, not like, you know, toddlers, but maybe around 6 to 7, something like that. And I really wanted to stay up and watch TV, perhaps. I was always a nighttime person, even since I was a kid. And apparently it's got something to do with your birth time as well. So not everybody knows what time they're born. But I was born around, if I remember correctly, if it's actually accurate told to me, I was born around maybe close to 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. So, and it kind of makes sense because we you know, like I'm okay in the morning, but I come alive after 5 p.m. Always. Sometimes if I get up in the morning, I'm okay, but after work and stuff, sometimes I feel, a little bit kind of run out of energy. But very often I feel energized again after around 5 p.m., you know, and then I really come alive at night. And a lot of brain activities, a lot of inspirations and ideas come through at nighttime. I don't know, my brain is just more wired to become active and at night. It's just the way it is. I think there's something to that. I'm trying to think whether I should go left first. Yes, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to... Once upon a time, I had worked 9 to 5 as well, or rather 9 to 7. And to be honest, when I was a student, I thought I'll never ever do a 9 to 5 job because it seems so depressing. But then I realized that it was actually not that bad. I think the commuting wasn't fun. If you've been to rush hours in London, it's no fun on the tube or subway. It's a London subway. But once you get to the workplace, to the office, it's okay. It's fine. And I don't mind working long hours or longer hours. And I worked in sort of an industry that, it's not uncommon to work past 6, 7 sometimes. So you dedicate most of your waking hours just being in an office. And then things happen. It makes you wonder if that's what you want for the rest of your life. Do you want to live like that? Be in a rat race where there's no destiny really, because you're always trying to get ahead a little bit more. Once you get somewhere, you want to go further. It never ends. There's no end. So, but sometimes it takes drastic things, events to push you to make changes, because we're creature of habits and creatures of, I wouldn't say comfort. We're creatures of even discomfort. We will settle there because it's familiar. And I'm talking from personal experience. I was wondering why I worked so hard. I thought I had a dream job. But why it just doesn't fill me up with joy? Why? Why do I just do not feel that I'm enough? I didn't know why. And particularly, I was working in a very corporate environment, so people around me, they were very similar to me. They're all, kind of working toward the same thing, whatever it was, success, higher pay, and just keep moving forward. And I can only speak for myself. Maybe some of my colleagues, they were very happy, perhaps. It's entirely possible. I don't know. I can only speak for myself. But I couldn't understand why I wasn't thoroughly happy. Well, not that there wasn't any moment of happiness. I think generally I knew that I was comfortable and I was doing things that I thought I wanted to do. But I also knew that something was missing. And if you have worked in kind of corporate environments, and it really depends on the culture of the company, it can be very toxic sometimes in terms of, the type of people that kind of thrive in that type of environment. I mean, apparently, according to psychologists, corporate environments probably attract a lot of sociopaths and psychopaths. Now I'm really making it very attractive. But that's true because I can totally see it. Because the reward, it's a system that rewards people who will get ahead no matter what. So it kind of draws certain type of personality in. And I shouldn't say that because I was part of that. I like to think that I would not ever do that. I don't think I did. I work ethically. But I had to learn to kind of survive in that type of environment and, and be okay with it. And I was okay with it for many, many years until I wasn't. But it wasn't a sudden sort of evolution. It was through, I'd say, traumatic events. I don't want to get too dark. There's no need for that. But I think everybody probably has gone through some sort of tragedy or losses of people around you. And sometimes that can make you rethink about your life. And that's probably a good thing. It's a good thing. It's no fun when terrible things happen, but once you start to process it, it kind of gave me the courage to do something different, if that makes sense. I think a lot, maybe some of you can relate to that. Sometimes thinking alone is not enough as a push for changes. Unfortunately, sometimes there has to be a drastic some life events that happens, and you go, hang on a second, is this what I want? And then I decided that I was no longer what I wanted in my life, kind of lifestyle. So I made changes. But it has to be something that's sustainable. It can't be just you can't just follow the impulse, so to speak. Because a lot of things you want to do, but yeah, you still have to be attached to, I don't want to say reality, because what is reality, right? But so I decided, well, I don't even know if I ever decided to pursue teaching yoga. I don't think, I can't record a moment that I go, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I kind of just fell into it. I think when you start to allow your heart to take you, planning is not necessary, I don't think, because the path will reveal itself, I think. Because you can plan and try to do this, that, and the other. It might not work out, no matter what. If the timing's not right, if, you need all the stars to line up. But I think when I decided to go on a teacher training, I wasn't sure if I was going to teach, because a lot of people receive the training, they never teach. A lot of people do it for their own sort of personal goal. I'm sure the people that train with me, maybe only a small number of people who are actually teaching. I don't know for sure, but it's not uncommon. People do the training, and leave it at that. It happens. It's not unusual at all. 2 more. I need to find them. 2 more stitches right here. So I remember, because I did, did yoga on and off for quite a long time. I enjoy the form, if I can call it workout. It's not really a workout, I don't think, whichever. But you are, it's a challenge for the body. And it provided quite a lot of release for me in terms of, the things I deal with my sort of internally. So it was always a place I went, but never for one moment did I ever thought, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna go and become a teacher. Never. And then things happen in my life. I lost certain people in my life through death, and it kind of crippled me for quite a long time. Not physically, but mentally. There was times that I couldn't even get out of my bed. I just wanted to stay in bed for like eternity. There were days like that. And then I think when you get to kind of rock bottom, the only way is up, I think. I hope. So 3727, let me just pop this back. 3727. And then I decided to go back to yoga just as a student, as a practitioner, and it helped my mind to find kind of solace and well, it's a cliche word, but some healing. And still, it never crossed my mind that I would ever become a teacher or anything like that, until it was weird. I think when the universe is talking to you and you choose not to listen, the voice will become louder. It will become less and less subtle. So I was doing a lot of yoga almost every day because it was such a relief for me, and it helped me to cope for whatever I was trying to cope with at that time. And then there would be suddenly, just out of nowhere, and people will come to me, I'll walk in the studio and people will come to me and go, oh, are you the teacher? And they started talking to me, asking me questions. And I'll go, no, I'm just here to practice, just like all of you. And that happened once. I thought, oh, how flattering. They thought, do I look like a teacher or something? And then I just let that be, let that go. I didn't think about it. And then a couple of days later, another person will come to me and say very similar things. They say, oh, do you teach? And I have no idea why would they even ask me that question, because I just come here to practice. And I remember there was very concentrated period of time that there would be people, sort of random people, walk up to me and kind of drop hints. And I believe, looking back, 3757, 3757, looking back, 3756, 3753, okay, 3753. So looking back, I think it was the universe trying to tell me something through these random people. I really believe that. And then suddenly it became an idea in my head. It kind of planted seeds in my head. Until one day, I can't remember how that happened. I decided to look up a training course. And from that point, it became something. It wasn't just a thing. It became the thing I had to do. I cannot explain it. From 0 to 500, literally. It became my life mission, pretty much. It sounds really dramatic, but it was really like that. From 0, from never ever thought about teaching to this is something I have to do. And if you ask any yoga teacher, why do you have to teach? And the truth is, no one has to teach. Or shall I say, if you're on the path, you have to teach. It sounds paradoxical. So it's not something that one has to do, but it's also something that you have to do. I'm not making sense. But it's also making a lot of sense to me in my head. It's a weird thing because if you want to make money, there are many other things you could do in life. I think that's what I meant. It's not a job. It's not a job. I'm going to double stitch this one. It's I don't know. I can't explain it. And the training process was extremely challenging. Not because of the physical element, because I can do yoga all day long. But teaching is a very, very different thing. Because if you like yoga, you go and practice yoga yourself. You're doing it for you. But when you teach, it's not about you. You're offering something to someone else. And it's a completely different thing. So in order to offer it to someone else, whatever this thing is, through your teaching, it might sound obvious, but you need to have something to offer. It's really as simple as that. So the question would be, what have I got to offer? And it's a pretty brutal question. What have I got to offer? Who am I to teach anybody anything? Who am I? So teaching is not about poses, whether you can do handstand or headstand, or how flexible you are, The question is, what have you got to offer? So sometimes it draws a blank. You go, well, I don't know. I don't know. And perhaps it's not something that you can answer with words. Perhaps it's not a verbal thing that you can describe, because as soon as you start to describe it, it probably becomes a static thing. You know, what have I got to offer? So again, I can't speak for other teachers, but for some strange reason, when I'm teaching, I'm totally at peace with myself. I don't try to think about my this or that or the other. I'm just there. It's weird because even when I started, even in the very beginning, most teachers, when they start teaching, they'll get really nervous. And I got that jittering feeling as well. But as soon as the class starts, everything falls away. And I think that was the moment I knew I was on the right path. Because there's nothing else in this world, things that I do, that I felt so much peace. I'm just there breathing with the students. Yeah. So here I am. So even now, sometimes if I stop and think about the fact I'm teaching yoga, I still scratch my head and think, how did I get here? Because the profession I had before was a very, very kind of different kind of existence. I don't want to say it's good or bad, because I enjoyed it when I was there until I didn't. So I cannot knock it and go, well, that was a mistake. Of course it wasn't. It was something I had to do in order to get here, perhaps. So everything happens for a reason. And I don't know whether this was my, well, I don't want to say endpoint in terms of what I do. Maybe it will evolve into something else. I don't know. I can imagine that I will not teach at any point, I think. But who knows? Life is not always predictable. And I'm glad it's not predictable. Otherwise, it would be very dull, wouldn't it? And I'm excited to see what I will become next. Probably not going to be a master stitcher. or winning some sort of stitching race. Like some people who can stitch like 1,000 stitches in, God knows, half an hour. I don't know, some people stitch really fast. Not me. Let's see, 52 to go. I'm going to move my thread over to the right there and see how far I can go with it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. So I like to think nothing is a mistake. Nothing is a mistake. Okay, hello Kate. Kate says, it's so pretty. How small is the Ada class? Yes, Kate, welcome. So, this is, let me just zoom out a little bit. So this is 25 count even weave, and it's gridded, as you can see. So it's quite a popular count for heaven and earth design. So let me just zoom in a little bit. And I think, you know, because it's so intricate, probably smaller stitches can kind of show that off a little bit more. I've seen people stitch this piece in maybe 18 counts, 2 over 1. I think there's another floss tuber that I've seen before. So, but I think you probably just end up with a very large piece if you go lower counts. I mean, even 25 counts is pretty large. Yes, 25 count is tiny. No kidding, Kate. I don't, yeah, so I totally agree, but your eyes do get used to it after a while. And I've been telling this story a couple of times that I started off stitching 14 counts, which is probably, you know, quite popular for people starting stitching, sort of cross stitching. That's quite standard. And I still do 14 counts, but I went from 14 counts pretty much overnight to 25. And man, did I suffer. And so because I came across full heaven and earth, full cross, not full cross, full coverage, and I love the idea. So I decided to just dive nose in, but I think that was a mistake because I couldn't see the stitches, literally, because my eyes just weren't used to it, and so that, you know, I couldn't interpret what I was looking at. Where are the stitches? Where are the threads? And so what I did, Kate, if you're interested in trying out, I will highly recommend that you start. I don't know what your current fabric count of your choice, but if you go from where you are and increase the counts. Maybe, let's say if you normally do 14 like I did, I went from 14 to 20. I think 20 is still quite doable if you're coming from 14. And start from there. Maybe do a small sample. Just train the eyes to focus on smaller stitches. And then I went from 20 to 22. And then eventually went up to 25. And it felt very differently when I did it like that. And also, pre-gridded fabric like this really helps. It gives your eyes a lot more reference points, and it will help a lot. So if you think 25 is small, excuse me, there are people who actually stitch in 28 counts, which I haven't tried yet. So maybe at some point I like to see what it's like, but so far I think I'm fairly quite happy with 25, because these type of pieces are so big, so you kind of want to make sure that you like it before you invest in the fabric and all the flaws to do it. So you could get sort of a sample fabric and just try out a small part of a pattern. That's probably one way you could do it, to see how you like it. Maybe you just don't like it. It's entirely possible. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me see. But it's good fun. It's good fun. And because the stitches are small, so the details really come through really well. I mean, I like 14 counts. It's a different type of sort of results. I've got a few 14 counts ongoing. I'll go back to them for sure. But because stitches are small, so everything's kind of in higher definition, so to speak. And it's okay, you probably notice I'm stitching with one single strand as well. So, with lower counts, you probably do 2. So it's another thing to try as well. Stitching with one strand is very different from 2 for various reasons. It's getting a little bit short now. And 3 here. I think 28 counts might be quite nice to do half stitches, because half stitches, 10 stitches, I think they're okay for 25 counts, but it might look really kind of, fully covered with 28. Maybe it's something to try for me. Now I have that idea. Because from the beginning of this year, I kind of started and went into this adventure of 10 stitches, which I kind of didn't do before, so it was kind of a first try, and I enjoy it, but I think I had a project which is semi-abandoned. I started it along with all the other 10 stitch projects, but I did it on 20, was it 20 or 22 counts, larger, lower counts, basically larger stitches, and it didn't come out that great. The coverage is just not enough with 2 strands, and I didn't want to go up to 3. Just seems a little bit over the top. So, you know, I kind of parked that. I haven't gone back. So maybe 20 is a little bit, or 20 or 22 is a little bit too large for 2 strand 10 stitches, unless you're willing to go up to 3. Otherwise, you just look a little bit thin in terms of results. So I might want to, I'll probably wrap it up here, because I've been stitching for about 3 hours. It never feels that long, which is pretty shocking. So this is my progress today, and let me just bring up my app here to show you my progress. So let me just untab that and see how far I've gone. Here we go. So if you look at the right side of the screen, close to 300, 282, which is not too bad. So close to 3 hours, and not bad at all, because I think this method of stitching, you know, it gets faster and faster as you move up to the stitch counts. And the progress here on the upper left here, very close to 13%, very, very close. And let me just zoom out to see where I am, where I've been working on. So it's the upper right corner there. So I'm going to continue to work on this area and going forward, and I'll be, you know, filling out this quite large area. There are quite a few blocks involved. So you'll probably take a few more sessions. And for the next stream, I haven't decided which piece I'm going to be working on. I could come back to this one, or maybe as a palette cleanser, I might move on to a different piece, maybe a 14 counts. I think it'll be nice switch, nice change there. So this is the design. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love it so much. And I can't wait to get to the cakes and the cupcakes and all the stuff that's going on the shelf at the back there. Oh, I just love it so much. So let me just zoom out a little bit to show you my progress overall so far. So this is obviously with work that I've done before for the past couple of years. There's a little bit more of the war on the left there, but it's absolutely beautiful. And so thank you for joining me this session, and I hope to see you, catch you soon. So if you're watching this with the playback, then I hope you enjoyed today's session. If you've been watching live, thank you so much for your company, and I hope to see you soon. So good evening and good night from London here. Nighty night. Good night.